case, they are accusing the UAE of complicity in the genocide against them, against the Sudanese people. However, the UAE says that Sudan is misusing the World Court in proceedings relating to the African nation's civil war. They do go on to say that the ICJ will rule within the next few weeks on whether the UAE can be plausibly found complicit in the commission of a genocide by arming the RSF, which is the Rapid Support Forces militia in Sudan's civil war. This sounds quite convoluted, and you are the right guy to unpack this for us. Welcome.
Yes, when it comes to the issue of the UAE involvement in Sudan, it's a very strange one because many would ask, why is the UAE involved in Sudan? But, it is supporting the rapid support forces in Sudan, and we know Sudan has been undergoing a civil war for a number of years now. And so the UAE's involvement prolongs the war with the government, the internationally recognized government, which has recently taken over Khartoum and pushed the RSF forces back a little bit. And this has been going on for many years. The UAE is supporting it. We've seen the most horrific war crimes in Sudan, and unfortunately, for many reasons, this genocide in Sudan has been, largely swept under the carpet. No genocide is more important, if I can put it that way, or could be getting getting less airtime than next. Be it, the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza, or in Sudan, or even in Yemen for that matter. So Sudan took the UAE to the ICJ in order to make it complicit, in order for the ICJ to, and arguing that the UAE should be deemed to be complicit in genocide. The UAE is filing its, answering case, but at the moment, the war continues. The genocide in Sudan continues. Unlike the genocide in Gaza, which is getting most of the headlines, it appears that the UAE is getting away with a lot of the genocide in the Sudan because the world's attention is on Gaza, and it doesn't make it any less important or any less horrific.
So, Dr. Jhazbhay, what comes to mind immediately in discussing this matter and looking at the headlines that the ICJ hears Sudan's case accusing the UAE of complicity in genocide. The overarching question would be, what's in it for the UAE? And immediately what comes to mind is all the natural resources in Sudan. And when we think about those issues, we kind of align it very immediately to colonialism and to Western powers interfering in African and Mid-Eastern countries because they want to get their hands onto these precious resources. One would never apply this type of thinking to the UAE, a brown country against a black country. I'm not sure if it's the first time we're hearing of something like this in the modern age. We do know that back in the day, the historical wars were probably and possibly fought for similar reasons, but not in the 20th and 21st century. It was always colonial powers trying to take hold of black and brown lands. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, it's a strange one, and many have asked this question: what does Sudan stand to gain? But we shouldn't, rather, what does the UAE stand to gain? And we shouldn't give the UAE a free pass. It's been involved, it's normalized with the Zionist entity, it's involved in supporting the opposition in Libya, it's involved in supporting the Israeli genocide of our Palestinian brothers. So one shouldn't be shocked. We should ask the question: what does it stand to gain. You see, Sudan has a wealth of natural resources, including vast agricultural lands, gas, gold, and it appears to be the third largest producer of, gas, gold, and agriculture in the continent. It also, we must look at what the UAE, as I said, is doing in Libya. Abu Dhabi backs the rebel authorities. So there is this coastline in the Red Sea, a crucial maritime corridor for oil. And it appears that the UAE wants to secure this route. So when in 2021, when the Egyptian, the Sudanese army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan seized power in a coup, which then resulted in a civil war, because that resulted in a power struggle between the RSF, Mohammed Hamdan, and Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. This now threatens the UAE's interest in the region. The UAE is not the only one involved in Sudan. It's also Egypt, it's also Turkey, it's also Iran and Russia. Some accuse of supporting one side or another. It's all about, political influence in a very strategic country. Political influence in order to ensure that, the UAE has its interest secured. And the interest is to ensure that, that the maritime route, the maritime route in that country.
You're breaking up, Haroon. Do you just want to move around or do something magical so that we can hear you? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Continue, please.
Okay. Yes. So it's about the UAE increasing its strategic influence in the region. There is a crucial maritime route, as I said, that on the Red Sea, and Sudan's natural resources, which the UAE wants a part of. So these issues affect why the UAE is involved in it. And at the end of the day, what it is doing is supporting a genocide of Sudanese. And unfortunately, it's largely getting away with it because these are largely black bodies, and the world turns a blind eye towards this. And it's crucial that that Sudan has taken the UAE to the International Court of Justice to pressure the UAE to, end its support for the RSF, so that Sudan can, once again, go apart on the part of political stability, which it hasn't enjoyed for many years.
Now, the UAE says that Sudan is misusing the World Court in proceedings relating to the African nation's civil war. And then responding for the UAE, Reem Ketait, a top foreign ministry official, told the court, and I quote, "The idea that the UAE is somehow the driver of this reprehensible conflict in Sudan could not be further from the truth. This case is the most recent iteration of the applicant's misuse of our international institution as a stage from which to attack the UAE," unquote. Sudan's allegations were, quote, "at best misleading and at worst pure fabrications," she went on to say. Your thoughts?
I think, that is simple. We have to call it out for what it is. It's a desperate PR exercise. It's a desperate Hasbara exercise that the UAE is involved in. None of those. It is based on pure rhetoric. There's no real evidence to back up the assertion made by the UAE foreign minister or any other UAE official, for that matter, because it realizes that it doesn't have a leg to stand on. All evidence points to the fact that Sudan is very strategic for the UAE internally, as well as the maritime corridor on the coast of Sudan, and the UAE is engaging in trying to protect its national interest, because an unstable Sudan means that the UAE investment within Sudan, as well as in the maritime corridor, is threatened. And the UAE wants to protect that at all costs, as well as do some of Israel's bidding within within that very strategic Red Sea. So this is mere propaganda. I mean, we shouldn't delve too much into, the UAE foreign minister and other officials' rhetoric in this matter. It's mere propaganda aimed to deflect attention from a very serious genocide that is going on in Sudan, that is largely off our screens, and the UAE would like that it remain off our screens so that it can continue the genocide and protect its interest within the country and as well as on the corridor.
Let's have a look at how Western powers are viewing this genocide in Sudan. The UK and other Western countries have suggested that they have limited powers to stop the fighting, and more influence rests with regional powers such as Egypt. You've touched on Egypt already, which has long-standing ties to the Sudanese army, and the UAE, which has long been accused of arming the RSF. Now, on Tuesday last week, a British-led attempt to establish a contact group to facilitate a ceasefire fell apart when Arab states refused to sign a joint communique after a conference in London. And analysts are saying that UAE's interest in Sudan stems from overlapping desires to gain a political influence, as you've indicated. They are now suggesting at the expense of Saudi Arabia, and what we've also touched on, exploiting its natural resources and prevent the spread of, and this one is a real a hot potato issue. And I kind of wonder why this new word has been coined, and what we as Muslims, how we should respond to this. This is what they're saying. This is the real kicker. And prevent the spread of political Islam, which UAE sees as a threat to its security. Goodness me, what does that mean? Political Islam.
Political Islam, very simply, Julie, is what, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood had during its brief rule in Egypt. What Hamas, the Islamic resistance movement Hamas, has, basically a democracy by Islamic principles. And this sort of arrangement provides a major threat towards the, Gulf Arab dynasties, the monarchies within the region, be it Jordan, be it Saudi Arabia, be it the UAE, and other countries who are autocratic dictatorships. There's no other way to put it. And any form, if political Islam has to succeed in Palestine, if it had to succeed in Egypt or Sudan or wherever it may be, this poses a threat to the UAE. And not only the UAE, to Saudi Arabia as well. So they don't want any form of democracy to be successful, be it a secular democracy, be it what the world uses as swear word Islamism, which is basically a democracy by Islamic principles. Whatever form of government that poses a threat to the Gulf Arab dictatorships is viewed as a threat to its rule, and as such, they support any opposition within those territories that would want to overthrow those let's call it Islamic democracies. They're not really that fully fledged as yet, but what the UAE wants is to foment discord, so that any form of democratic of political Islam doesn't succeed. And the UAE is not alone, as I said. It's Egypt, it's Jordan, it's Saudi Arabia, it's Bahrain, or any other country wants to destroy any form of what political Islam is like a swear word, and they want to destroy it. And this is part of the case in Sudan. I mean, Sudan is by and large a failed state, but they don't want any opposition, any sort of threat, whether it's political threat, whether it's military threat, whether it's economic threat to its hegemony in the region, and they're willing to support a genocide in that case in order to ensure that political Islam in the region, and it's not restricted to Sudan. We must understand that many of the issues that face the region, the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa region, are very similar, and they traverse the various nation states in the region, and these are threats to the bin Zayed dynasty in the region. So we are seeing that political Islam is used as a scapegoat. We know it gets the support of Israel, it gets the support of the US, it gets the support of the UK, because they don't want any successful form of Islam to exist, whatever it may be.
And we see what happens with this um, supposed spread of political Islam in the Middle East, particularly in Saudi Arabia. We know that it's an outright police state, and even recently, people that were going on Umrah were stopped and harassed if they had any material relating to Palestine. Overtly or covertly, if they were found with even a Palestinian a kefia, for example, they were harassed and were threatened that they'd be deported out of the country. So, yeah, it seems that these Arab rulers, Zionist Arab rulers, are really and truly pushing this agenda. We do need to wrap up, and I'll like, because we have our next guest online. What are the panel of the UN experts assessing and suggesting about this case that's at the ICJ currently? If you can just summarize for us very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly, is that the UN Special Panel is arguing that that the UAE should remove its support for the RSF, and trying to argue for an internal arrangement between the RSF and the Sudanese government, because in many issues the best path to finality and resolution is through negotiation. Those who are committing the genocide and the wild scale of murder, looting, and so on need to be held account. But this issue needs to be dealt with by Sudanese and Sudanese alone, and all outside actors, be it the UAE and others, need to divorce themselves from the situation. And unless that is going to be done, the UN panel says that this is the world's largest humanitarian catastrophe, even larger, believe it or not, than what is going on in Gaza. And it is our Muslim and brothers and sisters that are suffering in both places. And the UAE is complicit in this, and the UAE needs to divorce itself from the situation. And the UN says that the situation is going to get worse unless some sort of negotiated settlement happens soon.
Thank you indeed. As always, we do appreciate your deep insights on all matters political. You go well and keep us in your dua. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.